It is time. We've made it to March, and you know what that means. As usual, we do our mid-major threats episode, and next week, or really when the bracket's revealed, we'll do our picks and bracket tips episode as well. And as you guys know, I have a track record for doing this. Your birthday's the 14th. Let's go. Happy early birthday. Back in the day, there was a team called Butler. I had them in the Final Four. They made it to the championship. A year later, I had VCU in the Elite Eight. They made the Final Four. Years later, I missed the George Mason year. That was a surprise to me. I think it was a surprise to everybody. The the Loyola Chicago year. I had them in the Elite Eight. They made the Final Four. Florida Atlantic, just a few years ago, correctly picked to the Final Four. There's probably a few others. Last year, my big Cinderella didn't come through. It was Drake. They won one game. I had them winning multiple, so that's okay. You can't get them all every year. Last year, there really wasn't a Cinderella. It was kind of weird, but I expect there to be a Cinderella this year, so let's get into it. How we doing, Tina? How's your week been? Thanks, mate. Yeah, appreciate it, man. Appreciate you guys being here. So let's get into it. This is in order from 1 to like 22 or so of threats. So we'll start off with the ones that are least likely to make some noise in the tournament. And then at the end will be the most dangerous mid-majors. Gonzaga is not included in this because they're no longer a mid-major. So, without further ado, let's get into the first one. George Mason, the Patriots, their 20-year anniversary from their Final Four run. If they make the tournament, they will be dangerous. I've seen them play. They are tough. Their net metrics aren't good, so they no longer will get an at-large. In fact, that record, I believe, is a few days off, but everything else looks good. George Mason was looking good for an at-large bid until they lost like 3 of 4, but they got an RPI of 55, and they got upper third defense and upper third offense. Ken Palm's not super great, still top third of the whole nation. But I'm telling you, they have the roster to do some damage by how aggressive their defense is. They guard you at half court. And they got a win at Dayton. They've lost to Duke and Marquette this year. But mark my words, they are going to be a decent team. If they beat St. Louis on Saturday, then they might have a better case making at large, but it'll certainly help their seeding if they were to win the A10 tournament. So there's team number 1. The arrow's not working for me. A new team and kind of a surprise. I bet you didn't expect to see the St. Thomas Tommies. Yes, that is their mascot. 23-8 record, 12-4 in league. They play tonight, and I do expect them to win and cover. They don't have the greatest metrics because nobody wanted to play them this year. But they are very good. A net of 105, RPI 109, Ken Palm 105. Offense 93. They score a lot of points. And their defense isn't terrible. It's, 149. They have a win over North Dakota State, who's another team that's won over 23 games this year. So that's a good win. They played St. Mary's this year on the road, so that is one of their best teams that they've played all year. They didn't win, but at least they have played some challenging opponents, so they're not going to be scared come March time. And then they lost at North Dakota State. So one of those two is going to win the Summit League tournament, I would expect. I think St. Thomas is the more dangerous once they get into the tournament, though. I think they'd be a 13 or 14 seed that you don't want to see because they're a really good road team. Troy, the Trojans, the Sun Belt champ, is always tough when it comes to March. This year it's a little down as a conference, but if there's anybody from the Sun Belt that could do it, it's Troy. They've got some pretty decent wins this year, but they have it's really their losses that were impressive. They took USC to double or triple overtime on the road. Really, USC was fortunate to win that game. It took a couple of crazy buzzer beaters. I think there was a buzzer beater to send it to overtime, buzzer beater to send it to double overtime. USC got really lucky to win that game. And USC is a decent team. Troy had to come all the way over from Alabama to play them, too. At St. Mary's, they were competitive as well. They did not get killed. So Troy is not that bad. They've played a tough schedule, so I would expect them to not sweat anybody if they were to get in. Not the greatest metrics, partly because they've lost some games down the stretch, but they've been battle-tested. Forgive the UNC Wilmington logo. Couldn't find a good one. But the Seahawks are good this year at 26-5. Last year they got in as a 14 seed, and they took Texas Tech right down to the wire, only losing by about 9 points, I believe. It was close throughout the whole game. They're even better this year. They have better net ranking. They have better RPI. They have better KenPom than last year. So I would expect them to be a little tougher opponent should they get in. They do need to win the Colonial Conference to get in, and if they do, you don't want to see them. They have a win over Navy, who is a fellow 25-plus win team. Almost made this list, but I typically don't pick Patriot League teams for this show because that's not the greatest league for getting wins in the tournament, unfortunately. And they have a win at Charleston, which Charleston, one of the toughest places to play as far as mid-major arenas go. They get a really good crowd down there. RPI of 62, which is really good. There's a lot of Power 5 teams that are not that high. The net's 91, which is not bad considering their strength of schedule. And they're pretty efficient, 109 and 102. There's over 350 basketball teams, so they're well in the top third for offense and defense. And their key loss is at Kent State in a close one. Kent State's having a good year. And then at home to Charleston. So they split with them. The Yale Bulldogs once again make the show. They were here last year and the year before. The year before they won a game. Last year they did not. It was a little surprising to see them. But they have beaten Auburn in their most recent win in the tournament, and that was a few years ago. They're 22-5, 10-3 in league. They got one league game left, and that league generally has upset potential. The Ivy League, we've seen Princeton do it, we've seen Cornell do it, we've seen Yale do it, we've seen Harvard do it. It's always a conference champ you want to be aware of. And they have an RPI of 29, which is really good. Net ranking is 68. Anything above 75 is a good net ranking, in my opinion. KenPom 82, not too shabby. Their offense, all they do is score. They're 42 in the nation for offense. Once again, 350-plus schools. 42 is pretty good. A lot of Power 5 schools cannot claim that number. Not so good defensively, though, at 204. So they get you into track meets. Anthemico Bugatti B, how we doing? Key wins at Navy. Navy's a big win. They didn't lose very much this year, so anytime you get a win at Navy, it's going to show up in the key win column here. They also beat Charleston, and they beat Akron. Akron's having a great year. Probably the only team that could potentially knock off that Miami of Ohio team that's having a good year. Then their only key loss this year is at Bama. They went to Bama, and they were competitive for part of the game, but that defense could not stop Bama's offense. I think Bama put up over 100 points, but Yale did put up quite a few points themselves. So if they could clean up the defense a little bit, they might be a little scary in the tournament. So we're getting better and better here. The longer this goes on, the better the team gets, in my opinion. Now we got McNeese, the Cowboys, out of the Southland Conference. Lurker, appreciate that lurk, Anthemico. They're 26-5, 19-3 in the league. The conference tournament is underway. They have a great metrics all around. Net ranking of 60, RPI of 45, Ken Pom of 67. Their offense is good, and so is their defense. Defense is outstanding at 52. Their key wins over my Murray State Racers. They've beaten George Washington, which is a feisty team out of the Atlantic 10. Let's put it this way. If George Washington was in a different conference, they probably would win that conference, but the Atlantic 10 is pretty good this year. And then they split with Stephen F. Austin, which there's more on that later. Key losses at Santa Clara in a close one. And they also played at Michigan and were hanging around there for a while. And Michigan is number 1 in the country. They did end up getting, I think it was a 15-point loss, but they were hanging around there for a half. If they get a different opponent, like a 5 seed or a 6 seed, might be a little different. And then they, as I said, they lost at Stephen F. Austin. So look out for the McNeese State Cowboys. They won last year. They beat the Clemson Tigers. So you never know. They could do it again. Grand Canyon, the Antelopes. They need to win their conference to get in. They are on the bubble. So if they win out, but maybe lose in their conference championship game, they have a decent case to be an at-large. But really, I do think that they need to win the Mountain West at this point to get in. They are 19-11, 12-7 in league. Good ratings, net ranking 74, RPI 87. Ken Pom, really good, 63. And their offense is decent, but their defense is remarkable at 21 in the nation. They have played a very tough schedule. They beat Utah, which I consider a key win for these midway majors. Anytime they've played a Power 5, I'm going to note it here, whether that Power 5 team is good or not. I'm going to put it in the key wins or key losses because it shows you guys that they went out of conference and played some decent competition. They stepped up in class and played some Power 5 teams. And a lot of times they beat them. And then other key wins and losses is just like a ranked team or is it a team that has like 22 or more wins? I consider those key wins or key losses. So they beat Utah. They beat Utah State, which is a ranked top 25 win for them. And they beat San Diego State twice. So 4 really quality wins there. Key losses at St. Louis. Everybody lost to St. Louis this year. They lost to Iowa in a close one. They lost to Oklahoma State. They lost twice to New Mexico, who's also a bubble team. Iowa's on the bubble as well. And they lost at Utah State. So they have played a really tough schedule. They're battle-tested, and because of that, if they get in, they may be a tough 12 seed. Stephen F. Austin. Remember what we said earlier about more on that later. From McNeese's league. So one of those two I expect to win that league tournament and get in. Stephen F. Austin has a lot of history in this tournament pulling upsets. Back when they had walk-up, they were a 14 seed and pulled off a huge upset. I believe it was over West Virginia. They have also won a few times as a 12 seed. So they have a history in the tournament of pulling upsets, especially when the current Illinois coach was coaching them. They are a mighty 27-4 right now, 20-2 in league. So that means they blast their opponents that are at the similar level to them. Perhaps that means they should be playing up. Their net ranking is 85, RPI 75. Ken Pom is 87, and they're in around the top 100 in offense and defense. Key wins, well, they have a key win and key loss, and both of them are to McNeese. They didn't really play anybody this year, but I think that's more of nobody wanted to play them. Liberty. They were in the tournament last year, but got blasted by Oregon in the first round. But they also have history of pulling upsets. As a 12 seed not too long ago, they beat Mississippi State. That was about 5 years ago, I feel like. They are 24-5, 16-2 in the league. Don't have a great net ranking, but they're 44 RPI and 59 in offensive efficiency. So they can shoot. They do not play well on the defensive end. But this is a dangerous team because if they get hot, is the other team going to catch up? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if they're hitting their shots, they're shooting like 50, 60% from the floor, is their opponent be able to keep up with that? I don't know. That's why it makes them dangerous. They shoot a lot of threes. They beat Charleston. They won at Dayton, which is a great win. They lost to NC State, and they lost to Bradley. High Point, the Panthers, they're back. They were here last year on this episode, and here they are again, and they have even better ratings this year, but I'm not so sure they have the same talent as last year. They had a lot of guys move up to Power 5, and their coach moved on as well. But they reloaded, and they're 27-4, 15-1 in the Big South Conference. And I do expect them to win that conference. I don't think they have too much competition outside of Winthrop, who's also having a good year, but not quite as good. 78 in the net, 79 in the RPI, 92 in KenPom, a fantastic 58 in offensive efficiency, and 184 in defense. They split with Winthrop, who is another 20-plus win team this year. They didn't really play anybody out of conference, but did anybody want to play them? I don't know. So we'll see what happens if they get hot. Another team to watch out for with that offense. They like to score. Hawaii, the Rainbow Warriors. I'm sure you guys were surprised to see them, especially this high on the list. Out of the Big West, which really good mid-major conference this year with UC Irvine, who got second in the NIT last year. UC Santa Barbara has a lot of Power 5 kids that have transferred there to get more playing time. And there's also UC San Diego, who was a bucket away from upsetting Michigan last year in the tournament. It's a good league. And they are at the top of that league right now at 13-5, 21-7 overall. The metrics, I feel like, are underrated for them. They should be higher. Their defense is really good. They're 41 defense. But I'm a little surprised to see their net and their RPI and KenPoms hovering around the 100 mark. And their offense isn't great, but they can drag you into the mud with that defense, and that can keep you in games in March. Teams that advance either have really good offense or really good defense. A lot of times, the teams that make the deep runs have really good defense. Loyola Chicago, for example. Were any of those games played in the 70s? No. They were all played in the 50s and 60s. Same with Butler. Butler was an outstanding defensive team. VCU, same thing. George Mason. They all had really good defenses. They all slowed the pace down, and that can be a recipe for disaster for Power 5 teams that are struggling that night. They have key wins over UC Irvine and UC San Diego. They played Oregon. They actually were a bucket away from upsetting the Ducks, back when the Ducks were healthy, mind you. Jackson Shellstad has been hurt for a long time now, as many know. And they also played very competitively at Arizona State. So they've been battle-tested. And then they lost at UC Irvine and at UC San Diego. So they split with the two best teams in that league aside from Hawaii. So it's going to be interesting to see who wins the Big West. They do need to win to get in. And of those three, I think Hawaii is the most dangerous. Now we got the South Florida Bulls. 21-8, 13-3 in the league in the American. They have really good ratings. 49 in net, 32 in RPI, 53 in KenPom, 61 in offense, and 50 in defense. Really good numbers all around. They're a metric nightmare if your opponent prepping for them. They have beaten ranked Utah State and beaten Tulsa twice, who Tulsa's having a good year as well. They're 20-plus wins on the year themselves. They went to Oklahoma State and had a barn burner. So on a neutral site, they probably win that game. And they also played VCU and Alabama this year. And they played Alabama fairly well as well, if I remember right. So look out for the Bulls. Play a very quick pace, and they play good defense and offense. So I would expect the Bulls to win the American, but that league is wide open. Tulsa's decent. Wichita State's back. There's a couple other teams that could sneak in there as well, but I think the Bulls will probably prevail, and you don't want to see them on your bracket. Now we're getting to the really dangerous teams. VCU, always a tough opponent in the tournament. A household name for upsets, multiple Sweet 16s, a Final Four back in 2011. They are always a team you do not want to see on the bracket. They're 23-7, 14-3 in league, net ranking 46, RPI 30, KenPom 47, offense 47, defense 72. So everything is good for VCU this year. And they played a really good schedule. So they're battle tested. They're not going to fear anybody. They beat South Florida. They beat Virginia Tech. They beat George Mason. And they've beaten Dayton. And they've got all of their losses are good quality losses. They have not lost to a bad team. They lost to Utah State. They lost to NC State. They lost to Vanderbilt. They lost to New Mexico. They lost to St. Louis twice. And they lost to George Mason. VCU could get an at-large bid. I really think they need to win their final league game and at least make it to the semifinals of their conference tournament. I do believe that will be enough for them to get in. Probably better if they make the conference championship game and then lose. And I still think that they could get in. But if you're VCU, may as well try to win your tournament. That is probably going to be one of the most exciting tournaments, though, next week. I mean, you got St. Louis, you got VCU, George Mason, Dayton, Rhode Island, Richmond. It's a really good league this year. George Washington, it could go any way, really. St. Louis is by far the most talented team, but they don't need to win that tournament to get in. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens here. Now we got the New Mexico Lobos freshly on the bubble with VCU. Had a devastating loss last night, so the record is probably 22-8 now. They are 13-6 now because I made this last night. Their net ranking 44, pretty good. Usually good enough for net large. 56 RPI, 46 KenPom, 65 in offense, and a fabulous 36 in defense. They also played a really good schedule. Mississippi State, they beat them. Santa Clara, they went to VCU and beat them. They beat Grand Canyon twice, and they've beaten San Diego State. All really good teams. They lost to Nebraska. They lost at San Diego State, and they lost to Utah State. So half of their losses are to quality opponents. And New Mexico has UC San Diego's coach from last year. So they're well coached, experienced guy. He's a winner. And they got a lot of good transfers that went there this year as well. So I do think that they need to win at least 2 in their conference tournament to have a chance to get in at this point. But they may want to just win the Mountain West to feel safe. But if they get in, look out for them. They won last year. They might win again. Now we're getting to some serious danger. Belmont Bruins, I saw them in person up at Murray State a few weeks back. They are 26-5. They're playing tomorrow. 16-4 out of the Missouri Valley Conference. Very good conference over the years. I think they had a run there of like 8 years in a row. The Missouri Valley Conference had a win in the tournament. That league's always tough. Always producing upsets. You know, Northern Iowa, Loyola Chicago was in it when they went on their run. They're no longer in it anymore. Wichita State and Creighton back in the day were in this league, and then they had their runs. It's always been a really good league. Drake last year got a dub. So it's a tough league. You can never overlook the best team out of that conference when it comes to the tournament. And Belmont is the best team this year. Murray State's good. So is Bradley. So is Illinois State. But Belmont's got a little something else going for them. They were down by 16 at Murray State. They came back and won by double digits. They put up like almost 60 points in the second half. That's dangerous. You can put up 60 points in one half. I don't care if you're playing ghosts. No defense. That's tough to score 60 points in 20 minutes. Okay? That's why their offense is 35, one of the best in the nation. And their defense isn't bad either, 135. And their RPI is 38, Ken Palm 55, which is really good. It means they're above half of the Power 5 teams. And their net ranking's 54. They won at Charleston, at UC Irvine. They beat Bradley. Well, they split with Bradley. They split with Illinois State, and they beat Murray State twice. So they've played some decent competition, lots of 20-win teams. They didn't play too many Power 5s. I don't think they played any Power 5s, actually, non-league. But to be honest, do you really want to play Belmont in non-league? It's kind of a lose-lose situation. You lose makes you look bad. If you win, well, it's Belmont. But people should know by now Belmont's a quality opponent. And now we have Miami, Ohio. They're now 30-0. 17-0 in league. Their final game tomorrow. And I happen to have an undefeated ticket on them for them to finish undefeated. If they finish undefeated, I get paid. They're having a great year. Everybody talks about how they haven't played anybody, and they're right. But guess what? Do you know how hard it is to be the hunted? It is extremely hard. I've been in that position before. Our baseball team growing up was always the hunted. We always were the undefeated team year in and year out that everybody threw their ace against, everybody gave their best shot against. It is tough, night in and night out, to continue to get everybody's best effort and to still win. That's what Miami's doing. I don't care who they've played. They're 30-0. That's hard to do. Especially in basketball, you have a bad shooting night. They're still winning on the nights that they don't play well. And they have a 53 in net, a 26 in RPI, 88 in Ken Palm, 78 in offense, which I think should be higher. I've seen them play. They can really shoot. Very smooth offense. They move the ball around. They don't really have one star. They have like three guys that any given night could go off, but really they share the ball well, kind of like St. Louis. And their defense isn't terrible, 121. Their best wins are at Wright State, best team in the Horizon League, by the way. They beat Akron, the second best team in the MAC, who will be coming for them in the MAC tournament. And then at Kent State, which is a really tough place to play, and also a rivalry. So look out for the Red Hawks. They could get a really high seed. If they finish 34-0, winning their conference and going undefeated in the regular season, they could get a pretty high seed. I could see them getting like a 7 seed potentially. You would think undefeated would get like a 1, 2, 3, 4, but unfortunately, because of the strength schedule, they probably won't. I think their ceiling is a 7 seed, and their bottom's probably an 11 seed. But I don't want to face them if I'm in the tournament, and I will be taking them to win a game for sure if I see them on the bracket, which I think they're all but guaranteed now. Even if they lose tomorrow and lose their first game in the tournament, I think you got to put in a 30-2 team. Then we got Utah State, who's been in and out of the top 25 rankings all year. 24-6 and 14-5 out of the Mountain West. Fantastic metrics: 28 net, 19 RPI, 37 Ken Palm, 31 offense, 51 defense. Key wins, a lot of them: VCU, Illinois State, San Diego State, at New Mexico, and Grand Canyon. And key losses at South Florida, at Grand Canyon, and at San Diego State. So they've played a really good schedule. Got a lot of quality wins, really good metrics. I look out for the Aggies. And they're a household name in the tournament. They've got a lot of experience over the years. They were in last year. I think they've been in several years in a row now. So I think this is finally their year to get a W. This is the best team they've had, in my opinion, the last few years. So I think they're really dangerous. This is probably one of the most dangerous teams of them all. Santa Clara. They are on the bubble, but I do expect them to get in. I think they just need to win one game in their conference tournament to secure it. 2 will be a lock. They're 24-7, 15-3 in the WCC. Net ranking 41, 27 RPI, 39 KenPom. They have the 25th best offense in the country. They score. They also play really good defense, 66. A lot of times in league, when they're not playing St. Mary's or Gonzaga, they're winning by 20 points. So they are way above their class. They have key wins over McNeese, at Xavier, Minnesota, and St. Mary's. So they have a ranked win. The key losses, St. Louis, at New Mexico, Arizona State, Gonzaga twice, and St. Mary's. They play Gonzaga and St. Mary's very competitively, though. And now to the final few teams. St. Mary's, as we just mentioned, same league as Santa Clara. They're 27-4, 16-2 in league. So they were just one game above Santa Clara. They were co-champs of the WCC. They don't need to win at all in the tournament. They are fresh in the tournament. They will be an at-large no matter what. Their net ranking's 21. RPI is 12. KenPom 22. Offense 45. And they play outstanding defense. 18th in the country. Key wins, St. Thomas, Virginia Tech, Santa Clara, and they beat Gonzaga last week. Key losses, Vanderbilt, Santa Clara, and Gonzaga. So they split with Gonzaga. It'll be interesting to see who wins that WCC, final year for Gonzaga in that league. So yeah, this St. Mary's is really tall, tough to prepare for with that defense. I think this is the best shooting St. Mary's team we've seen in a while, and I think that's what makes them dangerous. They got great shooters. They got a lot of size. So we'll see what happens here. And finally, the most dangerous mid-major of them all, the St. Louis Billikens. I will be picking them to go to the Elite Eight this year. I don't care who is in front of them. I'm taking them to the Elite Eight. Record of 26-3, 14-2 in league. It's a good league. 23 net, 23 RPI, 25 KenPom, 41 offense, which I think it's number 1. I've seen them play. They shoot lights out. I'm surprised it's 41. I think it has to do with their strength schedule, really. 29 in defense, so they're good at everything. Key wins, Grand Canyon, Santa Clara, Dayton, and VCU twice. And their key losses, I mean, they only got 3 of them. Stanford, they lost at the buzzer. And Stanford's a good team. They got 19 wins this year. They literally lost to them at the buzzer. I mean, they outplayed them that game. And then at Dayton, which at Dayton's a very tough place to play. And I think they're just going through the motions. They got Robbie Avila on the team. He's finally a senior. And they got lots of guards surrounding him. They really go like 10 guys deep. They're a very deep program right now. It doesn't matter if they get in foul trouble, which is a huge asset for the tournament. They shoot 80% from the free throw line. They shoot 50% from field goals, and they shoot 40% from 3. That is like a cheat code. That's what you want your star player to shoot, and they're doing that as a team. That is how dangerous they are. You can't do that with a ghost guarding you. You trying to tell me I'm going to go out in my backyard and make 4 out of 10 threes? No, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna make 2 or 3 probably. And I played basketball, so St. Louis extremely dangerous. Watch out for them. And that concludes the mid-major special. We'll be back in about a week and a half filling out our brackets here on Twitch.